We are connected. Hello, hello, and welcome, everybody. Welcome to Froggy Friday. Today is June 14th, 2024. My name is Reverend Barbara Samuel, and along with Reverend Gwen Smith, we are your co-spiritual leaders of CSL Kenya. And today we have a beautiful day planned for you. We have Reverend Eileen Brownell in the house. Come on, show some love. Let me see it. Let me see it. Woo! And she is sharing the message, Journey to Freedom. Yes. We are so excited. We are so excited that she has come to shine her beautiful light and share her life with each and every one of us. And to share and shine their light today, we have Kareth, who's going to do our opening treatment. We have Paul, who's going to do meditation. And we have Nancy, who will do our closing. So we have a beautiful day as we all pop in, getting ready to share life. How's everyone doing? Let me see your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. Oh my gosh, we're so happy to be here. So we have some announcements that we'll share later on. We're going to have opportunities for people to get spiritual mind treatments later on, and we'll have a little Q&A session with Reverend Eileen after her talk. So let's get started as we do all things. Let's get Kareth to do our opening spiritual mind treatment, and then we're going to get Reverend Gwen to sing I Am Opening. And Paul, you'll jump right in with your meditation, and then we'll go to Reverend Eileen, just so you have an idea, Rev, of how we do things in the order of service. Okay, so Kareth, go ahead and start us off with that beautiful foundation of holding the sacred truth.
Okay, thank you. I know that I'm in spirit, and the Spirit of God is in me. I know it to be complete and perfect. Therefore, it must be complete and perfect in me as well. I know this for our community, that we are a spiritual idea manifesting in form. Every arm of our community works seamlessly in divine order, and our good is always available to us, right here and right now. So as we gather here today to deepen in our spiritual practice, we can rest in the assurance that all power and presence that there is clothes us in its eternal embrace. And I give thanks for this truth, because it is always affirmed in each and every one of us, and it flows from the heart of our community outward, touching lives wherever it's needed. And so with gratitude, I accept the action of law on my words, knowing that it always says yes. I let go and let God, and so it is.
And so it is. I am opening. I am opening. My heart is ready to receive. I am opening. I am opening. My heart is ready to receive. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know. Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. As we are centered in this stillness, let's take a few minutes just to be still and consciously know that we are God in expression. and as such, all is well. Despite the condition, all is well because we are God in expression. Let's take a few minutes to just be still, calm, and know and remember this truth that we are nothing but God in expression, and as such, all is well. Let's take time to be still and know this truth. be still and know that you are God in expression. This is what we know to be true. And as we come to the end of our meditation, let this awareness, let this truth be part of this service, that we are God in expression and all is well. So I invite you to bring your awareness back into the service. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Just profound gratitude as I slipped into that beautiful meditation. Thank you so much. Now, I want us to sing as we come together in harmony as one voice, remembering who we are. So feel free to jump in as we sing our theme song. We are one people, one strong heartbeat, just one spirit shining bright within us all. We are a part of one another, born to love each other. When it's all said and done, we are one, Reverend Gwen.
We are one people, one strong heartbeat, just one spirit shining bright within us all. We are a part of one another. We're born to love each other. When it's all said and done, we are one.
We are one, we are one people, one strong heartbeat, just one spirit shining bright within us all. Well, we are a part of one another. We're born to love each other. When it's all said and done, we are one. When it's all said and done, let me see those spirit fingers. We are one. Woo! All right, everyone, we'll keep that love and keep that spirit, the spirit fingers coming as we welcome somebody who has supported our community for years, somebody who has taught our classes, participated in our meditations and our visioning, somebody who has joined us right in Kenya for our conference. This is the one, the only Reverend Eileen Brownell speaking on Journey to Freedom. Unmute.
Hey, let me ask, does Kenya celebrate Father's Day? Does Kenya celebrate Father's Day? Yes,
Yes.
no?
Yes, we do.
Well, then I celebrate the fathers. Is your Father's Day this coming Sunday? Because here in America, our Father's Day is this coming Sunday. So I'm preparing my Sunday lesson for Father's Day. And I just wanted to acknowledge all the dads that are in the audience today, if you're going to celebrate it. And thank you for who and what you do and what you are. So we're going to take a little journey today, because we've all taken journeys. Sometimes we are doing extended trips, like we get on an airplane or we get in a train or a bus and we go a distance, and we do that to meet family or we do that for business purposes. And other times it's just a simple jump in the car and run across town to the grocery store. But each and every journey that we take has a very specific purpose. And one is for pleasure, and usually one is for fun, while others are almost like a chore, like when we got to go to the grocery store or something has to be done on a regular basis. There is another kind of journey, however, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is that journey is that we take as spiritual growth and spiritual freedom. And when we look for a definition of journey in the Oxford Dictionary, it tells us a journey is an act of traveling from one place to another, and especially when there's a major distance between them. But it also says it's a long and often difficult process of personal change, and development. And a woman by the name of Maria Relke tells us the only journey is the one that happens within. Freedom is defined as the power or right to do or say what you want without anyone stopping you. Or it can be freedom from something or a state of not being affected by. Now, if we listen carefully to Ernest Holmes, he tells us that freedom means to eliminate from consciousness all those things which bind and limit the free flowing of divine spirit through us, and at the same time to exercise the faculty of the personal choice. Now, I lived in a place called Orange County in Southern California, which is the home of Disneyland. Now, you may not know where Orange County is, but all of you know where Disneyland is in Southern California, I would assume. And Southern California is a mass of freeways. I mean, we're not talking just one or two freeways. We're talking a multitude of freeways. And after you've lived there for a while, you get to the point you detest the freeway system. Granted, they're great for truckers who are trying to get the freight and products from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. But for the rest of us, however, it was often an opportunity to sit on what we called a massive parking lot while we inched along trying to get to work or to home. A journey of 15 miles could end up taking, that would normally take 20 to 25 minutes could end up taking an hour to an hour and a half just to go 15 miles. Having come from a small town in Northern California to a major metropolitan area, I soon learned that oftentimes the best place and the best stuff that happened was off the beaten path. It wasn't always to follow the freeways or the roads that other people took. And what I came to understand was that that was where my learning took place. That was where genuine spiritual memories were made. Often it was I discovered something about myself that made me stretch in a new place. The growth within wasn't trying to get from point A to point B, but rather it was part of the twists and the turns in life that pushed me to grow. I also discovered that sometimes it was about getting lost, stepping out from the unknown into the unknown, or from the known into the unknown, and seeking out new soundposts along the way. You see, God gives us free will, and we get to choose the direction our journey is going to take. The Bible is filled with journey stories. Moses, Naomi, Ruth, Jacob, Mary, Joseph, Jesus, Paul, just to tame a few. And Jesus used parables, as we all know, to teach about the journeys in life. And one such journey was the prodigal son. I'm sure that all of you have read or heard the story at some time in your life. Now, Luke 15:11 through 22 tells that story. And remember the story, I'm not going to read it to you, but I'm just going to ask you to recall it because I know all of you have probably read it or heard it at some point. He had two sons, this landowner did. And one day the youngest son came to him and he said, "Dad, I want my money. I want my share of the money that I'm going to inherit, and I want it now. I don't want to wait around for it." And his father obliged him, and soon the son left on a life-changing journey. Rather, however, than spending his money wisely as he had been taught, he spent it on extravagant living. There were parties where the wine flowed and the women were too beautiful to resist. He also bought extravagant clothes and comfortable transportation. And ultimately, there was no money left. The country that he had gone to soon ended in famine, and he was a foreigner, and no one would help him. Since he had no money to purchase food, he ended up feeding the swine with corn husks. And so soon the son made a very difficult and tough choice. He decided to go back home. He would ask for his father's forgiveness and tell him he was willing to work as a hired hand because he had already received his money. We all know the remainder of the story, how his older brother was so angry at his father and when his father threw a feast and gave beautiful clothing back to the prodigal son. And there are many interpretations of this story in its entirety. Today, however, I want to focus on the youngest son's journey. And maybe not in a way that you've ever thought of. You see, the youngest son is restless and he wants to leave his father's house. Maybe he not only wants to explore the world, but he's tired of being the low man on the totem pole, and he wants to see what it's like out there and to make his own decisions and make his own choices and not have somebody else dictating what he's to do. And my guess is, if you're anything like me, many of us have wanted to leave home when we were younger. We wanted to be in charge. We were tired of being told what to do. We didn't want to be controlled anymore. So the young son obtains the money that he would ultimately inherit. And instead of investing it, he splurges on those luxury items. Now, today we might say that he bought fancy cars and expensive computers, material toys, as well as a few parties with maybe just a titch too much liquor. Now, when he was at that point that he could no longer support himself and he was hungry, where did he end up going? He went back. He returned to his father. He returned home. He went back to his source. We've got to know that he must have had a multitude of feelings in making that decision. Shame, guilt, and probably at the top of the list was how he had squandered his inheritance. Then there would have been fear. Oh my gosh, what if dad won't take me back? And regret, how he had spent his money. And of course, shame for the things that he had done that were not morally correct. And when he arrived home, his father accepted him back with open arms and a feast, no doubt, and yet he hadn't eaten well in days. And while he tried to get from point A to point B, and A was his home and B was his independence, his journey took a wrong turn someplace. And his earthly father understood and forgave him just like God does. And when he returned home on the second leg of his journey, he became free of that guilt and the shame and the fear that he had. Initially, he thought his freedom would be in leaving, and yet it ended up being in his returning. Many of us know that freedom in returning after we have grown spiritually. We know the freedom we feel when we're forgiven. There's an old Persian parable about a man who dies and he went to heaven's gate. And he was told by the guardian angel that he could enter only when he had brought the earth's most prized possession back to heaven. And so the man went away and he returned bringing the matchless jewels of King Cyrus in his crown. Guard shook his head. Nope. The streets of this city are paved with gold and the walls are precious jewels. We don't need any more jewels here. The man went away a second time, and he returned with the sword of Alexander, the conqueror of the world back in ancient times. And once again, the guard shook his head and said, Alexander is dust. The least of our messengers slew him in his frailty. Earth's strength is in weakness here. So the man left heaven for the third time and returned to earth to find Earth's most prized possessions. This time he brought back the lost books of Solomon's wisdom. And once again, the guardian angel replied, man's wisdom is folly in heaven, where all things are fully known. The man left still pondering, what could it be that he needed to bring to be able to enter heaven? Finally, he returned to heaven's gate and brought absolutely nothing. And the angel let him in. The man finally discovered that the most precious thing from earth was an open mind. An open mind to experience and know what Christ consciousness lives within each and every one of us. That this is what guides us on our journey to freedom. So just how do we discover freedom on our journey? Well, first, like the man in the Persian story, we must show up with a mind and a soul open and ready to learn, to receive, and ready to discover. And how do we do that? I think the most important way is through our personal spiritual practice. We're only able to experience truth with a capital T when we know how that perfection is within all of us is truly the divine. Last year, or a couple of years ago, I created a Lenten practice at our center. Monday through Friday, we came together collectively by Zoom for 30 minutes every morning to meditate, pray, study one word, and to journal. And the words are significant since they described 40 of the qualities of Jesus. Part of the practice is being in the two or more with like-minded people. And our Sunday morning gathering, or actually for you, it's Friday morning, nudges us to grow. But it is the personal spiritual practice that deepens our Christ consciousness and truly brings us back home. It's like the muscle memory that we create when we play a sport. The more we practice, the more it becomes a natural habit, and that is never forgotten. Next, we need to release our fears that we continue to hang on to within. After all, when we stay in that place of fear, we're living in duality. And when we're in duality, we're believing in two separate or opposing powers. It's like being in good and evil all at the same time. As religious scientists, we know that God is good and that God is all there is. And when we let fear come along and take over our life, we're letting go of our knowledge and our belief that God is all there is. According to Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, we intuitively know that life is the one real expression of God. Let me repeat that. We intuitively know that God is the one real expression of, or life is the one real expression of God. And to heal fear, we must experience God's presence within us. My guess is that I could ask each of you about a time you experienced God's presence, and you could tell me exactly when and where you were. After all, God is within us all the time. However, we just don't recognize it. Next, we have to have faith on our journey. A deep, abiding faith so that we believe in the unknown, that is that which we cannot see. Jesus told us it is done unto us as we believe. If we're unable to believe in our ability to create our journey, then we're unable to understand how God manifests through each of us. When we're living in fear and duality, we're forgetting that God can only do for us what God can do through us. That is deep, abiding faith. Part of our journey to freedom is about paying attention to the signposts along the way. I mentioned those signposts a little bit earlier. Regardless of what road we're driving on, There are always signposts that tell us what highway or road we're on, what lane we should be in if we're coming up upon a turn, or how fast we should be driving. Just like the road signs, there are many signposts along the way on our path to freedom. It might be a teacher, or Gwen, or Carol, or Barbara. Each of them, your ministers and teachers, who say something special specifically to you. Or it could be a book that gives you an answer you've been seeking. Or even a stranger that challenges you to forgive, or to understand, or to let go of your stubborn feelings and develop a new way of seeing. Signposts are everywhere. We just need to be on the lookout for them. After all, they affirm that we're headed in the right direction. The fourth way to inner freedom is through forgiveness. Just like the father in the prodigal son who forgave his son, it is our job to forgive others and stop carrying around the anger from others' transgressions that keep us tethered to the past. Forgiveness is about letting go of the hope that the past can be changed. Forgiveness isn't about saying that whatever happened was okay or right or just, but truly letting go. So often our journey in life is bogged down with so much extra inner luggage that we choose to carry. And carrying around those feelings of anger or hate and frustration about others prevents us from creating the space within to grow and move on. I watched a man who had carried so much anger and hate toward a man who had murdered his only child. I watched him forgive him. It was at Pelican Bay Prison in California, which was where California sends the worst of the worst people or prisoners in our prison system. It is a terrible place to be incarcerated. Men are kept in their rooms 23 hours a day, are only allowed to shower a couple of times a week. And Johnny stood there behind protective glass and gave this young man, who had spent most of his life in torment, forgiveness. It was as if a weight had been removed from Johnny's shoulders. Johnny let the power of his son's tragic death go so he could continue his journey in life. He returned to the present rather than hanging on to the past. There is a truth about life that we all instinctively know, and that truth is that life is a journey. And like it or not, if we don't move with it, if we try and settle down and make the present permanent, we're going to be frustrated beyond belief. We will never come to that place of inner freedom. Now, you may or may not have heard about a book and a movie called The Great Gatsby. It was a book that was written long ago in 1925 by a famous American author called Scott Fitzgerald. It was a book that I had to read in my English class in college, and it's worth talking about at this time. Some people like Gatsby because they think the journey of life can be altered or rewound, but I want to remind you that it can't. Gatsby's friends told him, "You can't repeat the past." And if you've ever heard of the story or seen the movie, you might know the main message is you can't stop the journey in life, nor can you repeat it. Gatsby wants to repeat the past. He wants to reclaim a time where he first fell in love with a beautiful young woman. You see, he went off to war, World War I. And when he came back, he didn't immediately seek her out because he went into business to make a name for himself, to make money so he could have money to entice her with. And in the meantime, she got tired of waiting and she fell in love with a different man and got married. Now Gadsby returns for her and discovers she is married. And so he tries to rekindle that love, hoping that she'll leave her unfaithful husband. And painfully, he discovers he can't reclaim his past and he can't change the present. Gadsby discovers he can't alter or stop the journey of life. For life is just that, a journey. The past is the past. The present will flow into the future. And like it or not, we don't move with it if we try to make the present permanent. We can become empty and frustrated, angry, and lose sight of love. So we're here moving through this journey of life, seeking spiritual freedom. There are peaks and valleys and times of drought and fertility, moments of fear and insecurity. Even though our journey might bring us times when we feel fear or shame or guilt, we know that when we return to the place of center of Christ consciousness that dwells within, we're once again on the road to freedom and knowing the truth within. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours. And so it is. Amen.
And so it is. Amen. Ooh, that was beautiful, Rev. So grateful. You have such a beautiful, eloquent way. You know, Jesus spoke in parables, and so does Reverend Eileen speak in parables. Oh, just easy to remember, easy to recall. Any questions, any thoughts, any sharing? Did that bring up anything for you? Reverend Eileen is here for you.
Thank you, Reverend Eileen.
You're welcome, Paul. Thank you for coming.
Now I have this question. So the issue of releasing our fears, okay? And like now, I really appreciated what you taught, but now I'm asking myself, so this fear I have, where did it come from? And I think I tell myself it is good because it came from God itself. And then this prodigal son that you gave us an example of, he had no fear. He had no fear. But then things did not turn out very well. So kind of I'm asking myself, so should we really relinquish fear? Or is it that we strike a balance between using it? Confused a little. Thank you.
There's 2 or 3 things that come to mind, Paul. Fear is a natural part of us, and it's in our DNA. And part of the reason why it is it goes back thousands upon thousands of years. Because when man was just basically cavemen, or fighting the mammoth, the woolly mammoths, etc., or they had not shelter like what we have now, their life was not necessarily safe. And so when fear came into existence, 3 things existed: fight, flight, or what's the third one? Freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. It took escape me for a minute. And so when fear came up for them at that point in time, it was about life saving. It was about being able to either fight what was there, freeze, so that it's like if you ever met a bear in the middle of the road, they tell you freeze, don't try and run from it, or to flight, to fly, to go away from it. That was how they saved their lives. So it's a natural part of who we are. And fear resides back here in the back of our brain. When we get out of that place of fear, we come to the front of our brain, and that's the present moment. And that's what we want to do when we're in that place of fear, is to go to the present moment, because that's the fear is not there. I'm going to tell you another little story here. And do y'all, I know you know what snakes are, and in America, we have what is known as a rattlesnake. And it's a snake that has a rattle on the end of it. When it's under, when it's warning you, don't come near me. Don't come near me because I'll bite you. It's got two fangs and it's got a venom in it. And when I was a little child, I had no concept of what a snake was. My mother had a tremendous fear of snakes. And we went on a trip with our cousins at one point, and I had cousins that were teenagers. And they took us on a hike up into the mountains. And when we were hiking and the adults were back at the picnic tables in the campground, when we were hiking, we came across a rattlesnake. And so my cousins got a stick, and one of them had a pocket knife, and he cut off their head, and they stuck the head back on the trail. And as we got close back down to the campground, they said, "Here, Eileen, go surprise your mother. Take this to your mom." And so I took it in my hands. And a natural reaction that happens with snakes is that it coiled itself around my arm. 3 years old, I'm not afraid of snakes. I have no concept that this is something that I should be afraid of. So they said, "Hide it behind your back, Eileen, and then go take it to your mother." And so I hid my arm behind my back with a snake on it, and I walked up and I'm going, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, look what I've got." And I pull out, and this snake is wrapped around my arm. My mother screams bloody murder, and she is just absolutely petrified. And the adults there, some of them were laughing, but my father knew instinctively what was transpiring and how afraid she was, took the snake off my arm and handed it back to my cousins. To this day, I cannot look at pictures of snakes. I am scared to death of snakes. I had a rattlesnake in my front yard one day, and I called my dad and made him come over and kill it, and then take it back home to his house and put it in his garbage can because I didn't want it around here. So that the moral of that story, or why I tell you that story, Paul, is most of our fears are created when we're children. It's something that happened to us instinctively when we were children. And we carry that form, and that fear shows up in all different kinds of forms in our life. And so we have to work with that fear. It might be a fear of poverty. It might be a fear that you can't get a job. It might be a fear that your marriage is going to fall apart. It might be your fear that you'll never find God. You don't know, but the only thing you can do is use those fears to help you on your journey to grow spiritually and to release them. I hope that helped, Paul.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A long answer for a short question.
I see Duke and James have unmuted themselves. Go ahead, Duke and James.
Thank you, Reverend Eileen, for that wonderful presentation. There are two things which, in fact, has come up to our mind. I realize that, okay, the fear you have. Thank you so much for tracing for us the origin of fear historically. Yeah, and I'm seeing like the fear which is portrayed in the Christian Bible about the sin committed by Adam was actually the fear triggered in human mind by the snake. The way I get that story, in fact, I can now see that, okay, that is what in fact was formulated to talk of the sin committed at the garden. Secondly, there is this statement you gave about how we cannot change the course of our journey. I got slightly confused there because if we cannot change the course of our journey, then in fact it puts us in a very helpless situation. In that I got it like there is nothing we can do. We have just actually to flow with the flow of the journey. We cannot do anything. I don't know whether that is exactly what you meant.
Okay, I want to make sure. Barbara and I'm having trouble. They were wobbly on my response. So help me understand what they're asking. If I understood it correctly, you said I indicated that we can't stop our journey. Is that what I said? You said? Is that
That's
we can't?
That has change the course of the journey.
change the course
Oh,
of
yeah.
the journey.
Yeah, remember where I talked about at the very beginning, Duke, about how we can, we get off the beaten path. We make the choice to get off the beaten path being, where we're running on this one road and we say, I'm going to take a turn. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to explore something else. Yeah, I'm sorry if I misconstrued in the lesson. We're on a journey. It's what do we choose to make with that journey and where do we choose to go with it? We make those choices.
Thank you.
Okay. And there was another part to that which I did not understand right at the beginning. Barb or Gwen or Michelle or I didn't.
At the beginning, he was thanking you, and he was talking about Adam
Okay.
and the recollection of
Oh,
the snake, and how that your story made him remember that story. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Things?
Yeah. And what I want you to understand too, Duke, is there's so much metaphysical information behind the Adam and Eve story. And Adam and Eve in every major religion of the world, there is always a creation story because man needs to understand why we're here. And so Adam and Eve is the one that's the Hebrew and the Christian accepted way of creation. And it was more than likely a myth or a story that was created that was passed on for generations before it was written down. And it's also about the tree of knowledge, of knowledge, that's a major portion of the Adam and Eve story also.
Well, I think we need to have you come back and teach some Bible classes with us too, and put our metaphysical spin on it. We would love that, wouldn't we, Reverend Gwen? Yeah,
I
think
love
that's
Bible.
what you do. Yeah, I know you do. Well, there are so many questions that we have still. So we will have Reverend Eileen back. Everyone show me. Come on, show me those spirit fingers. Yes, Nadine's in. Yes.
Can I just make one more comment,
Please.
Barbara, before I just discovered in an article of the newspaper, there's a lot of books that were excluded from the Bible when it was created back in the 300s. And one of the books of the Bible that was excluded was they picked John as part of the four Gospels over Thomas. And they just discovered a scrap of, do you know about this, Pat? Have you read about this? They just discovered a scrap of papyrus that came from Thomas, and it's been hidden in London or Germany, one or the other. And these folks studied it and they translated it, and it's the first piece of explanation or talking about Jesus as a child. And believe it or not, it's how he makes a clay bird and brings the bird to life as a miracle. That's what's written in this tiny little piece of papyrus. There is so much more that we don't understand that's about the Bible. And I just find the Bible fascinating when you begin to study it and look at it in new ways. So I'm just so excited about that story about Thomas. And I just love Thomas, because if Thomas had been accepted in the Bible, the whole world would be religious science right now. That's
Harris, that's your favorite one too, Thomas.
Yeah, it's just incredible.
Yes, it is. I actually wanted to ask whether she can share a link, Reverend Eileen, if you could share a link where I could read up on that.
I think it was CNN, and I've deleted the message. I will try and find it, and I'll send it to Gwen.
Okay, thank you.
And Gwen or Barbara, I'll send it to one of them, Karith, so that they can forward it to you, or I'll send it to both of them. I was fascinated with it, and somebody sent it to me and said, "Here, Eileen," and I'm going, "Oh, Thomas, So anyway, maybe we should do a Bible class on Thomas.
Yes.
That's
Yay, yay.
what I'm talking about.
Sign me
Yeah.
up.
Harris, you would love that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we have a couple of announcements that we need to make. Michelle, do you guys want to share? Unmute.
Well, we have a class coming up. I used to call it this thing called You, but Reverend Pat, maybe you can tell me what the new name is. I can't remember. Something about Infinite You or something.
Yeah, it's more than this thing called you. It's called Infinite You as the universe. So how about that? Like we are the universe, right? Or the universe is in us, right? And that class begins on Wednesday, June the 26th. And it's a 6-week class that goes to the end of July. So Reverend Claire and myself would be thrilled to have you come and participate in it. I think there's like a week overlap or something with one of the other classes, but feel free to sign up. You don't have to have, there's no prerequisite for it, so you can come and join it. And even if you studied or took this thing called You, like 3 years ago or 4 years ago or whenever it was, come back because this is a new take on it. We'd be delighted. And what I know is that you're not at the same place now as you were then. So the insight and the aha that you are going to experience is just going to blow you away and take you to that next level of your journey. So come and join us. It'll be posted in the CSL Kenya Students Group.
Thank you, Reverend Pat.
And for those who are in the Nairobi area, the gathering at the office is tomorrow, correct, Paul? It starts at noon.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, excellent.
Maybe you'll talk about Thomas.
There you go.
Yeah. So tell us some details, Paul. They have to bring lunch, or if they want some to eat, you'll provide tea and coffee?
Thank you for asking. Yes, what we'll do is we'll begin at 12, and everybody who's coming, please come along with something that you can share with your neighbor in terms of snacks. Thank you.
You can break bread together.
Beautiful. I wish I was there with you all. Okay, so we also have another opportunity. We're going to do our offertory affirmations, but there's also an opportunity at the end, just after Nancy closes us off with benediction, to get a 1 2-minute miracle personal in-person Zoom connection with a practitioner. So if your life is fantastic and you want more of that, just sign up with a practitioner at the end of this session. If you are looking for support with a challenge that you may be experiencing and you know that our practitioners are trained science and minders, and they will hold that sacred space for you and know the absolute truth. So before Nancy does our benediction, I want to get all of you to unmute. If you are in North America, you can send to cslkenya.org. And if you are in Kenya, you can send to Nancy and she'll post in the chat room the M-Pesa connection. And I want you all to unmute, and I'm going to repeat this. I'm going to state this, and then you will repeat it after me. Unmute, unmute, unmute. I am filled with the energy of abundance.
I am filled with the energy
of abundance.
I am willing to share my financial good with my spiritual community.
I am willing
to share my spiritual community.
Beautiful. Nancy, will you close us off with a benediction and feel our love, our gratitude? Yes, Eileen, you want to speak more?
I just wanted to let you know that I just forwarded the link to that article. I was able to find it even though I deleted it. So it's on its way to Barbara and Gwen right now on your phones so that you can distribute that to whomever you want. Or whoever was asking.
I'm going to post it here.
Okay, so it's there. I just was so excited when I read it. I didn't mean to break up your your process, but I
Okay.
wanted to let you know that I had found
It's
it.
all
and
it's
got-
already posted to the CSL Kenya
There you
group
go.
and the
There you
CSL students group. Isn't the internet wonderful? Isn't
Yeah.
technology fantastic?
It's amazing.
Look how quickly we can share the good news.
And I American Sign Language, thank you, Gwen and Barbara, for asking me to be here. It was good to be back with my friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our language, use hearts and prayer hands to say thank you. We appreciate you. Please come back again. Thank you for saying yes. You have warmed the cockles of our soul and just enriched our community by being here with us today. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Just a minute before Nancy speak, just put up your hands if you want prayer, if you want to go into the with a 2-minute miracle, so that we can put them into rooms. And also our practitioners need to just hang tight until we have everybody sorted.
Thank you.
So we
Thank
got Diana wanting to have treatment. Anybody else? Wilkester, are you wanting treatment? Gareth wants treatment.
Me too.
Christine, Gareth, and Diana.
So let's make sure we have all of our practitioners hanging out.
Beautiful.
Me too.
Oh, Masani?
Yep.
Okay, so now I need to know who the practitioners are because 2 of them were Kareth and Christine, but they both want treatment.
Alfred, Nancy, Claire, Karen, Michelle,
Paul.
Gwen, Paul.
Okay,
Christopher.
Yes.
thank you.
All right,
James.
Nancy. And James, yeah.
Okay,
Oh.
let us take a deep breath and come together in gratitude. I am grateful for this gathering today, for this community, for the connectivity of each and every one of us here. And as we step out and into ourselves, we remember and we embody the truth that God is all there is. And until we meet again, and so it is.
And so it is.
So it is.
Beautiful.
Blessings, everyone.
Go and shine the love and light that you are. Feel our love and gratitude.
Those
Thank
who
you.
want treatment, please stay put.
Yeah, just stay put. The rooms will be popping up in a minute here.
Those practitioners, please stay put.
Love you
Thank you.
all.
We love you. We'll be in
Thank you,
touch.
Eileen. Love you.
Uh-oh. Somebody
You'll
dropped
have to-
off. Somebody
have to
dropped
narrow
off.
down a day.
That was Eileen.
No.
You'll have to get a date from her for the Bible class.
We mentioned September.
Yeah, she's gone all summer.
I'm just going to stop this recording. Oh, I've made somebody else host now, so I'm requesting permission to you, Pat, to stop the recording. Or any of you co-hosts, if you could stop the recording, please.
Yeah, somebody. Just hang on a second here.
Gwen, can you stop the recording? Oh, she's gone.